They didn't walk away because you were too kind. They walked away because you were too predictable, too available, too easy to read, too easy to control. That's the uncomfortable truth, one that most people avoid, not because it's false, but because it hurts too much to face. You thought your kindness made you irreplaceable. You believed your loyalty would earn their respect. But what they really saw was predictability, and in their eyes, predictability breeds contempt. You thought your silence made you noble, quiet strength, you told yourself. But they didn't see it that way. They interpreted it as weakness. Believed your forgiveness showed strength of character. You took it as fear, as permission to keep pushing the line. You thought you were being patient, waiting for them to finally see your worth. But in truth, you were giving it away, piece by piece, without ever making them earn it. In a world addicted to noise, the quiet one becomes invisible. In a society driven by chaos and reaction, the calm one is often misunderstood. And then something inside you shifts. You begin to wonder, why does sincerity get punished? Why does loving deeply feel like a mistake? You look for answers, and the truth emerges. It's not that love is the problem. It's that you gave too much, too soon. You let them read your every move before you even knew their intentions. Exposed your truth before testing their motives. Because in this world, whatever is easy to predict will never be fully respected. That's the harsh law of perception. Machiavelli didn't teach cruelty. He taught power not in volume, but in silence. Not in aggression, but in the art of being unreadable. He taught restraint, the elegance of calm control, the power of holding back until it's too late for them to react. This message is not for the fragile, not for those still begging to be chosen. It is for those who are done explaining their worth, for those who are done proving they deserve a seat at tables that never saw them. It is for the one who is ready to become untouchable, because the moment they can no longer predict you, no longer read your emotions like an open book, that's when they start to respect you, not before. There is a type of pain many people never speak about, not because it's minor, but because it's humiliating. It's the pain of being too available and still ignored. The pain of doing everything right and still being treated like an afterthought. The pain of opening your heart fully, sincerely, vulnerably, only to be met with cold silence, with rejection, or worse. Manipulation masked as affection. No one teaches you what to do when your goodness becomes a liability, and your kindness becomes invisible, when your love is no longer seen as a gift, but a burden. And so you begin to question not just your choices, but your very self. You question your dignity, your worth, your instincts. You start to wonder, was I too much? Or was I just too easy to get? Then comes the quiet kind of heartbreak, kind that doesn't scream in public but simmers in private. Betrayal. No one else sees, the pain no one else hears. And that's what makes this particular pain so dangerous. It's not loud, it lingers. It rewrites the way you move through the world, teaches you not to trust your own emotions. It makes you second-guess every moment of honesty, every act of love. You start to muzzle your truth not because it's wrong, but because last time it cost you more than it gave. That's how self-doubt is born, not from obvious failure, but from subtle rejection, repeated invalidation. You gave too much too early. You tried to explain your worth when you should have let it speak for itself. You kept proving, hoping, reaching, and all they saw was need. All they felt was pressure, a sense of control slipping away. Because in this world, the moment they sense you need them, they stop needing you. That's how fragile the power balance is. You tried to earn respect through love, through openness, through consistency, but they only respected what you withheld. You hoped to create closeness by opening your heart, showing them everything, but people only truly value what they have. To fight for what costs them something. And here's the part almost no one is willing to admit out loud. They didn't hurt you by accident. They hurt you because they could. Because you allowed them to believe you'd stay regardless. Because you always answered when they called. Because you never let them taste the weight of losing you. There was no fear of consequence, only the comfort of your constant presence. So now you carry a quiet grief. It's a subtle ache that doesn't attract sympathy because no one really sees it. It hides beneath jokes, behind the appearance of being busy and under layers of false pride. But it shows up in every moment you bite your tongue when someone crosses a boundary, and every time you fake indifference while boiling inside. In every instance, you shrink yourself to avoid conflict, just to keep a fragile peace. That is the hidden pain not just of rejection, but of self-abandonment. And the most painful truth? You didn't lose their respect. You never had it. Because you were too accessible, too transparent, too emotionally available. You let them see everything. You let them predict you. And in a Machiavellian world, what is fully seen is rarely treasured. What's predictable is rarely protected. So what do you do with that pain? You don't drown in it to transform it. You stop over-explaining. You stop begging to be understood. You stop thinking being chosen is the reward, because it's not. The real reward? Becoming someone they can't read? Someone who doesn't flinch under pressure? Someone who doesn't chase heaven when they want to? Someone who doesn't need, even when they feel deeply. Machiavelli warned us plainly. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. It's not cruelty, that's strategy. Because in a world that feasts on softness, your survival depends on how well you can hide your hunger. This isn't about turning cold or bitter. It's about becoming calm, composed, steady, and unshakable. You will still feel deeply, but not everyone will get access to those feelings. Only those who earn them. It's where your power begins. What if I told you your pain was never about you? That being overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted wasn't proof that something was wrong with you, but that you walked into a system engineered to exploit emotional honesty. Because when you strip it all down to its core, society doesn't reward sincerity, it rewards strategy. In any room, the person who speaks less often commands more attention. The one who seems like they don't care, they get pursued. The one who reacts the least, they get respected the most. Why is that? Because in the psychological battlefield of human interaction, mystery equals power, predictability equals control. And when someone can predict your feelings, your hunger, your emotional rhythm, they begin to feel entitled to exploit it, and they will. Because when people know where to press, they will press, again and again. You're biologically wired to chase what pulls away, to desire what feels self-sufficient, to respect what we can't easily decode. That isn't cruelty, it's human nature. It's the primal blueprint behind power dynamics. So when you offered your attention too freely, you unknowingly taught them it wasn't valuable. When you forgave them without setting any limits, you taught them your pain had no cost. When you continued to show up, even after disrespect, you gave them the false belief that they'd never have to work to keep you. They didn't need to rise. You lowered yourself for them. And here lies the deeper mechanism. This world doesn't educate us on emotional discipline, it conditions us to perform emotions. Smile on cue, be eager, stay available, stay open until you're no longer useful, then disappear quietly. That's the unspoken script. We live in a society where silence is seen as dangerous, but noise is a commodity. And perhaps the most piercing realization? They didn't leave because they didn't care. They walked away because they assumed you never would. That's what happens when you're always reachable, always explaining, always proving your place. So what's the antidote? It's not about abandoning your heart. It's about caring with precision, loving with wisdom. Caring, but with strategy. You must master the art of emotional control, to become cold, but to become grounded. Because if you don't define your access, someone else will assign your value. Make your presence feel earned again. Not by becoming arrogant, but by becoming selective, by choosing who receives your energy and why. You don't owe everyone your attention. You don't owe everyone your story. You definitely don't owe them your reaction. Power isn't measured by how deeply you feel it. It's measured by how intentionally you choose to reveal. Machiavelli understood this. He taught that a true leader must remain composed, even in the middle of chaos, must conceal his goals, never letting enemies see him panic. And in today's world, you must become that kind of leader not of armies, but of your own nervous system. You regulate your impulses. You train your tone. You learn to become unreadable not as a mask, but as armor. Not to deceive, but to defend the sanctity of your inner world from those who have not earned a single part of it. This is not emotional suppression. It's emotional sovereignty. You're not reacting anymore. You're redirecting. You're refining. You're restricting access. Not because you're fragile, but because your power is too valuable to spill into the hands of those who mishandle it. So next time they test your patience, next time they push your buttons, say nothing. Speak for you. Let your absence explain what your words no longer will. Because the moment you stop flinching at disrespect, the moment you no longer feel the need to justify your pain, you've already reclaimed the part of yourself they believed they still controlled. If this message stirred something inside you, if it touched the part of you that's been silent to long, consider supporting this channel through super thanks. Every contribution fuels more of what speaks to your truth, to the version of you that's done being used, the version that's ready to be unreadable. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more Machiavellian philosophy and real psychological power. We're just getting started. And this isn't just a tagline, it's a declaration. Because if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling hollow, ever sat in silence wondering why your loyalty keeps getting weaponized against you, the truth may sting. You are following the wrong rules. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. If you've ever felt disrespected, overlooked, or used, chances are it wasn't because you're weak. It's because you moved with emotion while the world responded with perception. And here's the cold reality. The world doesn't reward emotional honesty. It rewards calculated presence. Strategy and perception punishes those who reveal too much without purpose. So let's break this down clearly. Here are 6 common mistakes that silently destroy your power, mistakes many are making right now without even realizing. Mistake number 1, believing that love will fix dysfunction. You thought that if you just loved them harder, they'd eventually change. You gave more. You sacrificed more. You held space for chaos, thinking that loyalty alone could heal them. You confused your endurance for transformation. But as Machiavelli warned, the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Some people don't want to be healed. They want to be held while they hurt you. They use your loyalty like a leash, knowing you won't walk away. Stop loving harder. Start leaving sooner. Mistake number 2, over-explaining your worth. Kept proving, justifying, persuading. You believed if you could just be vulnerable enough, transparent enough, they'd finally get it. But in reality, the more you explain yourself, the less they respect your words. Power doesn't negotiate. It's felt. It shifts the room before you speak. So stop selling yourself. Start observing their response. If they can't see your value without a speech, they were never listening. Walk away with silence. It echoes louder than any explanation ever will. Mistake number 3, waiting for closure. From the one who caused the wound, you waited for the apology, the truth, the reckoning. But here's the truth. No one wants to admit people who break you rarely hand you healing. They avoid closure because it protects their ego. So every second you wait is another second of power handed to them. You don't need their acknowledgement to move on. You don't need their words to validate your pain. What you need is discipline. Close the door yourself. Burn it if you must, but don't wait for someone who lit the fire to come put it out. Mistake number 4, confusing presence with peace. You stayed because they were still there. You thought if they didn't care, they would have left. But presence doesn't equal protection. Being physically close doesn't mean they emotionally respect you. You convinced yourself that endurance was strength. That staying while breaking meant you were resilient. But strength isn't staying where your soul is shrinking. It's not peace, that's survival. Survival is not power. Power is choosing your peace, even when it means walking alone. Mistake number 5, making excuses for disrespect. They were tired, stressed, had a rough childhood. You rationalized their behavior so many times you started rewriting reality. You blurred the line between forgiveness and self-erasure. But the truth is, simple people who constantly disrespect you know exactly what they're doing. They just know you'll forgive them again and again. It's time to stop softening the blow. Stop justifying cruelty. Make them wrong. Make them face consequences. Mistake number 6. Believing emotional honesty is always a strength. Vulnerability can be powerful, but only when used with discernment. You were told to open up, to speak your truth, to share your heart. What? But here's the harsh lesson. There is no strength in bleeding for someone who enjoys the sight. No victory in handing over your inner world to someone who hasn't earned the key. Context matters. Vulnerability without boundaries isn't bravery, it's exposure. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more Machiavellian philosophy and real psychological power. We're just getting started. Soul 2. Someone who never earned the right to hold it. That's the truth to many realize only after they've been drained. You handed over something sacred or energy, your loyalty, your love, to someone who only saw it as a convenience. But here's what Machiavelli actually meant. He never said don't feel. He said don't revel unless it's a weapon. That subtle distinction can be the line between ruin and resilience. These mistakes you made, they weren't flaws. They weren't failures. They were lessons carved out of your most noble instincts. Hope, loyalty, love. But here's the bitter irony: beauty without boundaries becomes a curse. You gave because you believed in the good. You tolerated because you wanted peace. You stayed because your heart was open. But now you see with clarity what you allowed. What you accepted, what you gave away without requiring them to earn it. And this is the turning point. Not the part where you grow bitter, where you become unavailable to the wrong people. Where your time, your attention, your emotional currency becomes protected territory. From this moment forward, you protect your energy like royalty. Don't speak to be heard. You speak to be felt. You don't explain to be understood. You observe. You withdraw. You let your silence speak for you. Your stillness command more than your words ever did. Because real power, it doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, it doesn't explain, makes itself known through presence, quiet, composed, and immovable. Power is felt in what you withhold, in what you don't respond to. It's in your silence, in your absence, in your refusal to be moved by anything that does not honor your value. Niccolo Machiavelli wasn't a cold man, he was a clear man. He didn't write for the innocent or the naive. He wrote for those who had been deceived, used broken, and who decided they would never allow it to happen again. His philosophy was never built on cruelty. It was built on control, not domination of others, but preservation of self. Because Machiavelli saw what so many still refuse to accept. The world does not respond to your intentions. It responds to how you appear. You could be kind, wise, honest to your core, but if you show up disorganized, emotionally volatile, or easy to predict, you won't be treated as a person of depth. You'll be treated like a tool, something to be used, not respected. That's why his most misunderstood principle still echoes today. It is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both. Why? Because love can grow complacent, can be taken for granted. But fear creates distance. And distance builds boundaries. Get boundaries, create order. In today's world, principle holds strong. But the arena has changed. It's no longer a matter of swords and kingdoms. The new battlefield is presence, perception, and psychological gravity. Machiavelli taught that a true leader must know how to maintain the illusion of control. Even when chaos is boiling beneath the surface, he must seem steady, even when everything is on the brink of collapse. Because so long as others believe you're composed, they hesitate. Hesitation is your advantage. He also left us a darker warning. A man who wishes to profess goodness at all times will come to ruin among so many who are not good. Does that mean for you? If your goodness becomes predictable, if your kindness becomes exploitable, if your honesty becomes ammunition, they will use it against you. Your morality, then, is no longer a strength. It becomes bait. You must learn the art of contrast. When to show compassion and when to remain distant. When to forgive, when to disappear. When to lead with warmth and when to lead with cool detachment. This is not manipulation. This is strategy. This is discipline. This is the quiet edge that cuts deeper than noise. Machiavelli's genius wasn't only in what he declared, it was in what he left unsaid. He didn't command you to be heartless. He urged you to be unreadable. He never promoted cruelty. He taught precision. In a world where every sigh becomes a status update, where emotions are packaged and sold, where silence is misread as weakness, you don't ascend by screaming louder. You ascend by speaking less and making every word carry weight. This is the art of emotional silence. The rarest power is not being heard, it's being felt, even when you're quiet. If Machiavelli were among us today, he wouldn't tell you. To shout for attention, he'd lean in and whisper a truth far more powerful. You don't need to be loved by everyone. You only need to be respected by the right ones, and that kind of respect is never earned through overgiving. It's earned through needing less. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop reacting to everything, when you step outside the patterns that once made you predictably become untouchable. Why? Because people fear what they can't read. They follow what they can't manipulate, and they crave what refuses to chase them. That's not arrogance, that's intentional design. Don't rush to speak. Don't overfill the silence. Simply stand. Breathe. Wait. Let your presence do the talking. Because real influence isn't granted, it's felt. It begins not with control over others, but with command over your own presence. Once you master this, you'll never again plead for influence. You become it without shouting, without chasing, without apologizing. But here's the turning point. You have to stop asking, why did they hurt me? That's not the right question. The real question is, why did I allow it? That moment of accountability is where real power begins, not when you accuse the world, but when you reclaim your role in the script, because whether you knew it or not, you were playing a role. Script written by wounds, by childhood confusion. Unhealed trauma and beliefs that taught you love must be earned through pain. And in that script, your silence wasn't a strategy, it was fear. Your kindness wasn't power, it was self-protection. Your loyalty wasn't discipline, it was anxiety dressed up as virtue. But here's the truth, no one tells you. You don't have to keep playing that role. You don't owe your past any more loyalty. You don't need to live out old stories just because you were cast in them once. You have the power to rewrite the entire narrative, and that shift begins here. You are no longer the one chasing validation. You are now the one who chooses where your attention flows. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are the one who decides what and who gets access to you. You are the one who vanishes with dignity, who no longer needs to prove anything. This is the death of the needy self, the self that overexplained. It clung to hope that stayed too long trying to be enough. And in its place, you begin to build something entirely different, something steady, something calm, something deliberate, dangerous. That's what you must become. Let this sink in completely. You don't win arguments by explaining yourself more clearly. You don't gain power by offering more of yourself to people who misunderstand you. You win by becoming unreadable. You rise by becoming the one who no longer plays by emotional rules that others wrote. Let your energy speak before your words do. Let your silence echo what your voice no longer needs to say. Stop narrating your wounds. Stop giving away the map to your mind. Master your presence, because the less you reveal, the more control you retain. And every emotional reaction you hand out, that's leverage they didn't earn. That's access they shouldn't have. This is emotional sovereignty, the quiet kind of strength. To feel everything deeply, but to show nothing you don't choose. To care fiercely, but never chase. To know your worth so firmly that even when it's ignored or misunderstood, you don't shrink, you don't explain, you don't prove. Ask yourself this: what would Machiavelli whisper if he saw you trying? Too hard to be liked? He'd remind you you don't need to be known to be powerful. You only need to be felt. People will feel you the moment you stop needing them to. They will notice your energy more when it walks away than when it begs to stay. So next time someone drifts away, don't follow. Let them go. Next time someone disrespects your time, don't explain. Withdraw your energy like a luxury they no longer qualify for. And when someone plays games with your attention, don't match them. disappear. Because your absence, when done with intent, speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. That's the new frame, the new role. You're no longer the performer begging for a seat on someone else's stage. You are the one who directs the emotional theater, not by being in every scene, but by choosing which scenes are worthy of your entrance. And know this is not emotional suppression. This is emotional architecture. You're not hiding your building. Constructing something inside yourself that no one else can easily enter. A sanctuary where peace is not a luxury, it's law. Where urgency is the enemy. Where silence is sacred. Because once you stop reacting to the world starts reacting to you. That's the turning point. That's the moment you stop surviving and start leading. Philosophy is worthless if it doesn't reach your habits, if it doesn't shift the way you enter a room, reply to a message, or hold your silence when provoked. So now, let's take these insights and make them practice. Let's turn your detachment into a new language. Let's make control your quiet, invisible weapon. Here are 6 rules of real-world power. Simple, clear, lethal when mastered. Rule 1. Control access like a fortress. Your attention is not free. Your time is not infinite. Your energy is not for public consumption. You don't know immediate replies. You don't know explanations for your quiet. People who are used to your constant availability will call your boundaries selfish. Let them. Because real power begins where your availability ends. Rule 2. Master the timing of your presence. Stop appearing the moment they call. Stop rewarding inconsistency with immediate validation. Stop responding with urgency to people who treat you like an afterthought. Machiavelli taught us, the wise prince does not rush with the crowd. He watches, he waits. He moves when the moment carries weight. That means you don't attend every argument. You don't rise to every insult. You don't offer your clarity to people who are never truly listening. You don't water down your presence to be more palatable. Your silence. Let it be friction. Let it sting. Let it echo. Let them sit in the discomfort of not being able to provoke you. Not because you are cold, but because you are controlled. Rule 3. Speak like a sword, not like a river. Most people drown in their own noise, but not you. Every word you choose, measured, deliberate, sharp, should feel like a decision, not a plea. Never explain when silence says more. Never justify what already stands firm. Never apologize for removing yourself from chaos. Speak only when your words shift the atmosphere. Speak like the room was waiting for you to say exactly that, Dan. Only that. Rule 4. Respond with precision, not emotion. When they raise their voice, you lower yours. When they insult, you maintain your gaze. When they provoke, you smile with stillness. You don't match their chaos, you mirror it back. A polished mirror never needs to shout. It reflects, it reveals. Let them unravel in their noise. You remain composed, refined, unreadable. Let them see their own instability in the calm of your presence. Rule 5. Become a mirror they can't decode. Not because you fake detachment, but because you've done the work, the inner work, the shadow work, the stillness, the solitude. It's the discipline. There are no nervous laughs anymore. No over-explaining, no hidden tells. Just you, calm, present, and deeply aware, not only of the room, but of yourself. That's not arrogance. That's gravity. Gravity cannot be faked, it must be earned. Rule 6. Use absence as a weapon. Walk away not to punish, but to protect your peace. Withdraw, quietly, cleanly. No drama, no explanation. Let your silence recalibrate the space. Let your distance be the correction. Don't announce your boundaries. Don't ask for their understanding. Don't perform closure for people who never earned your pain. You simply stop bleeding. For those who never tried to stop the wound, these 6 rules are not a mask. They are a return. A return to who you were before the world taught you to. Beg for attention. Before you confuse being accessible with being valuable. Before your silence was mistaken for weakness or invisibility. Now you know. Distance creates respect. Discipline creates presence. And control speaks the quietest language of power. From this moment forward, you move like a fortress. You speak like a scalpel. You lead with absence. you conquer with calm. Because true power, it doesn't need to announce itself. It's not proven in noise. It's felt in stillness. What does real power look like? It's not the version Hollywood sold you, not the loud, hyper-aggressive illusion of dominance. And it's not the passive, overly sacrificial image of sainthood. Either, no. The new face of power is quiet. It is present. It is precise. And it is deeply unfazed. The powerful man or woman does not perform confidence. They don't shout to appear in control. They don't hide behind charisma. They don't weaponize pain to earn sympathy. They don't bend to be accepted. They simply exist in full command of their gravity. They do not crave being liked. Are driven by something sharper to remain unmoved. They can love without clinging. They can listen without agreeing. They can feel deeply and still show nothing. Because they've remembered who they are. They realize something few ever do: being understood is optional, but being respected, that's essential. They don't explain their silence, and they never try to soften its weight. They simply let it linger, unanswered. They don't send warnings when they're done. They just leave. When they do, you feel it not because of slammed doors or harsh words, but because their absence echoes in the space they once occupied. They don't seek revenge they outgrow. They don't beg to be heard. They choose to be done. They don't waste time saying, "I'll show you." They let time do the talking for them. They don't chase closure because they've realized closure isn't something you're given. It's something you choose. So they create distance not to punish, but to remind the world that access to them must be earned, never assumed. Their posture doesn't change to impress a crowd. Their voice doesn't shift to preserve temporary peace. They don't adapt to fit the room. They make the room adjust to them, and that's what makes them powerful. It's what makes them dangerous. Not because they're loud, not because they're angry, but because they possess a quiet power, a silent potential to destroy and yet choose peace. They could expose the truth, but remain silent. They could dominate, but have nothing left to prove. They don't panic in chaos. They become the calm at the center of the storm, the still eye, while everything else spins. They don't react to insults. They record them. They absorb. They process. They continue to build, not in rage, but in resolve. They don't wait for apologies. They build legacies in silence. They don't need the world to believe in them. They believe in themselves, so completely that even doubt hesitates to approach them. This is the face of true power, the kind of power Machiavelli envisioned. Not the brute tyrant, not the loud monarch, but the man who is so composed, so centered, that others begin to question themselves in his presence. Because real power isn't how many people you control, it's how few people can control you. So, if you've been misunderstood, disrespected, betrayed, or abandoned good, that pain wasn't for nothing. It's carved out the version of you that no longer flinches. That silence wasn't emptiness. It forced you to discover a new kind of voice that doesn't shout, but speaks in ways that shift the room. You are no longer here to be soft for a world that sharpens every blade behind your back. You're not here to please. You're here to stand solid, still, sharp. Not angry, just awake. Not bitter, but clear. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your evolution. You owe yourself the right to fully live it, because when you stop chasing to be seen, you become the one they can't look away from. You become the quiet force in the room that changes the air without a word. They may never understand the change in you, but they will feel it. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to justify anything. You don't need to be seen, understood, or accepted, because the moment you begin chasing perception, you give up command of it. So let them wonder. Let them misread your silence. Let them fill the void with assumptions and empty noise. We're no longer here to defend yourself to people who benefit from your confusion. You're not cold, you are controlled. You're not distant, you are deliberate. You're not heartless, you are sovereign, because what you've built can't be undone. What you've seen can't be unseen. And what you've become no longer fits in the cage they once crafted for you. From now on, you no longer warn people. You no longer plead your case. You simply walk awake, quietly, deliberately, with no need for explanation or drama. You no longer argue to be understood because you've realized those who truly want to understand will make the effort. The rest? Let your silence speak to them. Let it unsettle them. Let it stretch out until it forces reflection, not because you demanded it, but because your absence demanded. It's more than your presence ever could. And the next time the world expects you to react, pause. Resist the urge. Don't flinch. Don't fumble. Don't explain. Hold the tension. Let the silence stretch like a drawn bow just before release. Let your quiet carry the weight that noise never could. Because when you stop flinching, they start doubting. When you stop chasing, they start craving. And when you stop speaking, every word you do say becomes gold-weighted, intentional, unforgettable. This is your turning point. Your silent revolution. Your declaration without a single shout. From this moment forward, you do not over-explain not your feelings, not your boundaries, not your absence. You do not overshare because not everyone deserves access to your depth. You do not overstay because when your time is up, you leave without bitterness, without spectacle, without regret. You observe more than you engage. You listen more than you speak. You protect your peace with the same intensity that a king guards his kingdom, ruthlessly, unapologetically, because you are not just seeking power. You are becoming it silently, completely, and without. Asking for permission, that's how real legends move. No noise, no begging, no proof required, only presence, only gravity. And if this message stirred something deep inside you, if it hit that place you've been guarding all this time, you already know what to do. You don't need to say anything. Just become the one who never needed to be loud to be felt.